Nathan has the runner. Daisy Pearce in space inside 50. If Bannon just kicks the ball, she backs her pace in, takes 2 bounces, runs to 30. This will be a wonderful goal. Coast to coast footy from the D's.
Kickers have got nothing to go to. Blackburn through Bilardo generates the kick. Who else? Benelli May.
Now another chance for them to go forward. Guest kicks it to Truce and up. Oh, wide. Molly McKenzie with a hanger.
Zagetti again. Strong Zagetti.
Oh, great body work from Lachlan. Chance out the back on her left boot. Brilliant. Celebrates with the fans on the hill.
And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess, here, back with another AFLW review. Round 4 has come. It has gone some magnificent footy. We were treated to this weekend. A little bit happier for myself, as you know, as a Swan supporter. Got a second win, which we will discuss a little bit more. But I have to introduce my co-host for the round, a very good friend of mine and very good friend of the podcast, Miss Nikki Claire. Nikki, great to see you again.
Hey, Donnie, how you going? Good to be back.
I am doing well. I can see the pep in your step as both of us had a great weekend when it comes to our teams getting wins over the weekend, especially your D's. We had a fun little conversation off mic a little when it came to both of our teams here on this, but I thought let's record and talk about all of the games going this round. So let's jump right into it. Let's jump into the woods really quickly. Before we go through the nitty gritty, thoughts on round 4?
Round 4 was a mixed bag. There's a lot of wins we expected to happen, but there was also some upsets too, as my footy tipping has proven. But it was a great weekend. Great weekend to just enjoy really hard contested footy. You can see how much over I think it was an 8-9 month layoff between the seasons. You can see the progress in the players, what they've done over pre-season. Like their kicking now is just phenomenal. It's hitting targets, it's going longer, and it's making for exciting football and bigger scores on the board. So yeah, loving it.
Well, and if they're not putting up big 70, 80, 90 point scores, the best part is there's some really good competitive scores in the upper 30s, 40s, and 50s. I mean, it's good competitive footy. So it's like, I know the detractors will all say, oh, this not has the scoring. It's like, yeah, but you also have to remember this is 5 or 6 minutes shorter of a game. And many of these women, when it comes to it, they just don't get the training and the conditioning that the men do. So, but absolutely fantastic footy. I truly appreciate several great matches. So I think let's jump right into it. And I know starting off, we'll get your joy out of the weekend as the Melbourne D's go to Frankston to play the Hawks and get a nice 59-point win, 70-11. The D's look just so good.
Yeah, they're very settled across all the lines at the moment, and they're really enjoying their footy. So an interesting fact that I've been reading in the socials, and I'm not sure if you're aware, that they haven't conceded a score in the last quarter in their last 13 matches, which is a phenomenal thing for them to do. So it just shows you that the hard work that they're doing and how well gelled they are together and know each other's game. And they just went down to Frankston for the first time and really took it to the Hawks, took them apart. Very reminiscent of a practice match that Melbourne played Hawthorn at Casey just before the season started. So I went down and checked out that match too. And in an odd kind of way, both matches Melbourne kept Hawthorn to 6 scoring shots. The only difference was in the actual round this week, Hawthorn got a goal. So so it's they did their homework really well. They know you can see how they set up behind the ball and how when they just push forward, just keep it going. I think there was a run in, Paxi ran through and burst through the lines and got a handball onto Eden Zanker, who kicked the first of her 3 in the third quarter. Just sums up just how the players are going, and then they just put the foot down in the second half and off they go.
Yeah, I mean, and I know you lost it. I know Daisy Pierce retired, and again, so fantastic for her to end her career with a premiership. But I I don't hesitate to say this. I think Melbourne got better. Like it's scary to think that
Oh
Melbourne
yeah,
got better because you add the Amy Mackin of the Mackin sisters, which was great to see both of them play in this game, which even had the
yes.
one goal that was Mackin to Mackin that I had to get a little bit of a chuckle on that one. So
Mackin squared, if you will.
exactly. So but it's just like just to see this team so deep and the fact that you could rotate some of the midfielders even more. Like you can push an Olivia Purcell, you can push a Lily Mithen up forward, and it's not going to affect your team at all. It is a
Yep.
scary thought process of this Melbourne team if they continue to progress and get even better than they already are, because they look lethal as it is. Again, this is a Hawthorn team that's still growing under Beck Goddard. Yes, they've got Greta Bodie and Emily Bates over the offseason, which I think is absolutely great for the competition because it evens out the talent. But the issue that I see with it is it's just such a deep Melbourne team. They didn't get touched in the PSP period. So until you get some of their stars out of Melbourne, Melbourne is going to be the talk of the competition. They're going to be the cream of the crop.
Mm,
So it's going
yeah.
to be
So,
interesting to see how it goes.
but we'll see. But I mean, there's a lot of talk about Melbourne not losing players over the trade period, but that's just a small factor. You've got to take into consideration that they work their backsides off over preseason to
Hmm.
maintain where they're at. They know that they're the team that's going to be hunted, and they've also got the culture. And you spoke about it before. We call it the DP effect, the effect that Daisy Pearce has had on the group and
Hmm.
what she brought to the club. That will always be the mantra of the D's AFLW. So it's
Hmm.
a destination club, really, and it's not bragging. It's just that's just the way it is. So
Hmm.
I think a lot of it's got to do with maybe other teams learn from what they're doing off the field as well as what they're doing on the field.
Hmm. No, I completely agree with that on that one. It'll be very, very interesting, but absolutely no movement, no having to adjust everything definitely does help. But
Yeah,
again, this is such a good team. They've been playing together. They've been playing together for several seasons. It's going to be very, very difficult not to see them being very deep in the finals, especially come the end of it. So let's jump up to Manuka Oval and GWS taking on the Adelaide Crows, and the Crows looking absolutely sensational with a 69-point win over the Giants, 106-37. I know I'm a Swans fan, but I feel a little bit for the Giants in this situation because they've just not had their draw has really been one of the reasons why they're 0-3, because they've faced a Swans team that was red hot, that found them at just the right time. You play Adelaide early in the season, so they may be 0-3, but I really kind of say this is they've had some really tough matchups to start the season.
and they have, yes, and they've also played Melbourne, so
Hmm.
which is another factor. But yeah, they for the first 3 quarters or thereabouts, they really took it to Adelaide. It was a hot contested match. So I was actually quite surprised in the end what the margin was. So I think I've watched several games that GWS have played now, and they seem to fade away really badly in the second half. So whether that's a fitness issue or it's a belief issue, not sure what it is, but yeah, they've definitely had some really tough matches. But then you can see, like, when they took it to Adelaide in the first half, they were really good, really competitive. If they can maintain that level for 4 quarters, they'll upset a few teams with the rest of the rounds left.
Yeah, I agree. I think it might even be a little bit of game style too. Are they using a little too much energy early in the game and just not having those extra reserves late to push through and into the fourth quarter? Could be the only other question there. But I mean, again, Ann
Mm.
Hatchard, absolutely fantastic. Ebony Marinoff having a season high. I think she had 40 disposals in this game. Another fantastic
How do
game
you
by
stop the Noff? That's the question.
well, and the worst part about it is if you stop the Nuff, then it just lets in Hatchard off the chain, and then
Yep.
who knows
Yep.
where Chelsea Randall can go anywhere on the ground. So who knows
Yep.
how that one's going to go. And then you look at it. Neve Kelly has been an absolute sensational signing from the West Coast Eagles. She's allowed to kind
Yep.
of run her
Yep.
game. I know last year she had injury issues, so that was one of the reasons why um she didn't feature as much last year. So again, this Crows team, again, deep, talented, but it's the depths behind their superstars will be the question. Because if I mean, if God forsaken again, I'm touch wood, nothing happens. But if a Marinoff, a Hatchard, a Randall goes down, what's the depth behind them? It will definitely be the question for sure. But again, Crows just so good on this one. 106 points, an all-time record for them when it comes to scoring. Fantastic. Just Crows just too good. But I agree with you. I think there's a lot of good things going up there with the Giants. It's just going to take a little bit of time. Alicia even not being there, being out by suspension didn't really help either.
Yeah.
Comes to it. It was great to see Elise Parker was back and playing in this game. It was a little scary when she left the previous game, thinking, oh no, that's a death blow to GWS when it comes to their midfield if she would have been out. So great to see that she was okay. So we'll go to an absolute cracking game between Carleton and Richmond as the Tigers survive again, getting a 7-point win over the Blues, 47-40. This is what I mean. May not be the highest scoring game, but this is a competitive, tough game, and the Tigers just too good in the end.
Yeah, they were. It actually was an interesting result because the Tigers got away early and then the Blues clawed back and hit the front, and you thought that they were going to run over the top and run away with it. And then in the last quarter, Richmond found another level and it took them down. It was it was a good game to watch actually. I liked a lot of the matchups, but just to watch how Richmond set up around Monaconti and let her do her thing, and Katie Brennan is such a wonderful snap-on goal, like just pure perfection when she has that shot. To give her any space, I think, is a sin. You've got to, keep a tight contest with her so that she doesn't get that break, because she will punish you every single time. So, it was good.
It's great to see her healthy. I think that was the one thing that they had that great run last year where they won all those games in a row after the first couple of losses. And I remember last year saying in the podcast, I said, keep an eye on Richmond, because after those first 2 games, their schedule looks, their fixture looks really good. They could go on a run. And I remember as the season went on, I kept telling some of my co-hosts, it's like, I'm kind of calling this. Like I said, keep an eye on Richmond. Was the 0-2 team, and I think could still make finals. And to do it without Katie Brennan last year makes it even more impressive, because you can see how good she is up front. You add Caitlin Greiser, who gives them like kind of the second option after Katie to kind of take away a little bit of pressure. And they've always had really good small forward. They've had really good small forwards. The emergence of Elise Sharon out of the halfback line and her run off halfback is fantastic. This is a Richmond team that they're really good. They're just missing just a little bit, but they're definitely going to give teams headache. They're so much fun to watch. And as Conti is absolutely fantastic. Then you add Grace Egan on the defensive side. Ellie McKenzie is unfortunately still injured, but this is a midfield that's so much fun to watch, because there's a lot of talent in this midfield for the Richmond Tigers. They're going to be fun to watch for the next few years for sure. So let's jump over to Alberton Oval in Port Adelaide, where the Cats get another win, 70-42, a 28-point win over the Port Adelaide Power. And like I've said in a couple of podcasts, the Cats scoring goals for fun with Chloe Shear and Jackie Perry is so much fun, because after the first few seasons, when it seemed like they were the defensive team, they would win 8-6, they would win 12-10. So to see them scoring goals and playing really good football and still maintaining that great defensive structure on the backside is fantastic. This Cats team, they proved it last week, pushing North all the way to the end. They're dangerous on their day.
Yep, they sure are. They've recruited really well, so I love their midfield. And just watching them go, like, we play them. Melbourne play them on Thursday, and it's going to be a cracking match. It's the first time the 2 teams have played in competition. I know that they've had a couple of practice matches a few seasons ago, but to see how they match up in the midfield. And we've got a few ex-Cats that have come over to the Ds in Liv Purcell and Geordie Ivy, so hopefully they may know a thing or two about those Cats. But I mean, what's not to love about their setup as they run through the midfield? They've got Meg Mack down back, charging all the troops from defense all the way up to the forward line. And Chloe Shear, you cannot stop her. So it's going to be a huge task for Melbourne to at least quell their shots on goal. And but what the power that the Cats showed against Port. I watched Port the week before against St Kilda, and they're no pushover. So to run away with the win like they did just goes to show you just how much they've improved in the competition. They made finals. They made finals last year. They did. They got knocked out by North in the first lot of finals. So they're definitely on the right path, and it's good to see them to get some success. They struggled for the first couple of seasons in the competition, and now it's all coming together. And I don't think they had, like Melbourne, I don't think they had many players leave. So they've got a good core of players, and they'll keep developing because they're so young. So yeah, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the next season or two, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and the best part with Chloe Shear is that she doesn't have to do it all herself. Jackie Perry's got great hands up forward, and then Kate Sermon in this game was a welcome addition to that forward line. I know hitting her old side in Port Adelaide back a little bit was kind of interesting. It was an interesting situation there, but I mean, they're so deep. And then, as you said, in the midfield, Amy McDonald, Georgie Pasparkis, Nina Morrison. It's a scary lineup at times when they can get footy in hand, because all really good delivery with it, all work their absolute tails off. It was so much fun to watch this midfield work because they work really well together. It's fantastic that if Georgie gets hung up a little bit, Amy or Nina come in and kind of pick up the slack. So that's one of the things I gotta give the Cats a little bit, is that they work so well together. They're going to be an incredible fun team to watch as they get older, they get stronger, they get more experience. It is going to be an absolute blast to watch this Cats team grow again. Port's growing. There's still some things that they still need to work on. There's still a few kinks in the armor, but they're showing that Ash Saint has been a great. Erin Phillips stepping up and kind of making more of an impact on the game than she did a little bit last year. I think this is a Port team that it's going to take a little bit of time to grow, but there's still some positives definitely from the power there. So, and conveniently, when I try to do stats to make sure that I had the right name, that's when all heck breaks loose. Yay, I found it. Sorry. So mid podcast, I wanted to be sure that I had Kate Sermon's name. I was like, I absolutely had a brain fade there. And I was like, who was the other? I know it's Jackie Perry, Chloe Shear. So I had to go through the statistics. I'm doing that. And I'm like, oh no, I'm done talking about the Cats game. I got to move on to the next game. What is it? Oh yeah, Sydney at home at Henson Park, which I have to say this again, maybe this is a little bit of the Swan Snuffy in me. Henson Park looked fantastic with the hill just covered with people, and to see almost 5,000 people attend this game, and to see the Swans play really well in a game that this is an Eagles team that they're kind of up and down a little bit, but they're scrappy. They're a tough bunch. They don't just roll over. Swans get a 13-point win, 34-21. I'm going to say this right off the bat, but let me have my red hat Donnie moment. Chloe Malloy, you magician, with that absolute fantastic snap from the pocket that she buried. I swear she's trying to make sure she has a goal of the year candidate in each and every round, because I swear she just keeps finding a way to make the Swans fans go, seriously, how good is she?
Yes. That's why you get the big recruits up to Sydney. Yes, she definitely put on a show. That goal was a ripper. I remember just watching and going, how did she do that? But yeah, that was fantastic. Although there was two great goals, there was also a great snap from
Emma Swanson.
Emma
Swanson from the opposite
that's
pocket.
Who it was.
Yep,
yes.
Inside out too.
Yeah, that was must have been the scoring end. We had offline, we had a chat about our favourite Swan player, Brenna Tarrant, and who's a good friend of mine. And after the game, I messaged her and asked her, was the plan for the day just trick shots on goal from both sides? Was that how they were going to win it? So she's laughing. She said there was some good goals, but the pressure from both teams, given that We know that West Coast is struggling at the moment. I think it has a lot to do personally with their coaching staff. The players always give 110% when they go out there, but I just don't think that the game plan suits half the lineup, unfortunately. So once they click and they get it right, they'll again, like who were we talking about before that was struggling a little bit?
Port Adelaide.
Port Adelaide, thank you. You're not the only one that's having brain fades.
Well, you have it a little bit more. You've been
click...
through a whole day. I'm early in the morning, so
Yeah,
you have tired
true.
and I have tired. We both have tired for different reasons.
Other end, yes. Excuse me, but yeah, no, definitely. Once they get that feel of what it's like to get that success, I think we'll see, West Coast become a force. And they had quite a few players leave at the end of the season. So you don't want to say that they're in a rebuild, but they've still got new players that are coming in and learning what the game plan is and what each other does. So, I mean, you can argue the same with Sydney, but they've been phenomenal. Sydney were talked up when they came into the competition last season, and they just kept falling short. So it's good to see them to get a couple wins early on the board, and from how solid they've been in defence. Obviously, Chloe coming to the group, and also McAvoy has been a wonderful addition. But who are we talking about? Your Swannies ruck. Wow. What a star. Honestly, she is going to take this competition by storm. I have never seen anyone in the AFLW, and even this is with my bias, with my Lozzie Pierce, my favourite ruck, but the technique is just incredible to watch. It's such a natural technique and gets the height and just can palm it down to any of her teammates out on the ground. And yeah, definitely a huge advantage for the Swannies right there. So
yeah, I've heard interviews with her that I think, and we had kind of talked about this off mic, that it was her fitness that we really got her last year, that she just was not in elite running fitness. And Coach Gowans and her sat down and she said it. She goes, I need to get better in my fitness. I'm not getting her on the ground. And she said, I just started running one day. I just started running one day and just fell in love with it. And she looks absolutely phenomenal. And you and I were both discussing the one ruck one ruck contest in the Black Pocket, where she literally did a specky on Zoe Weckfer's head to get the tap.
Yes.
And I remember watching it going, OMG, what monster has Coach Gowans released on the competition? Because she's been absolutely fantastic. I'm loving it. Like, she's still so young and she's still progressing. But again, there's so much great there. Laura Gardner is another one of the signees. I think that she came from the Cats, and you look at that Cats midfield, as we just kind of discussed, so deep. She couldn't get a game there, and then last week she puts up 40 in the game against the Cats. So it's just kind of crazy that the signings that the Swans got. I know that it caused some stir among some people, because why are these players leaving? And it's like, well, I love what Chloe said. She didn't want to leave Collingwood. She wanted to stay there. She Collingwood was all she knew, but she knew the betterment of the competition was worth making the move. And I think she's starting to see the appreciation that many of the Swans fans have for her doing that, because last year, I mean, there's no AFLW fan that can say that the Swans were going to be competitive, because 10 weeks to get everything ready, and you can't draw anybody up to Sydney, not only because of the difference in cost of living, but the fact that you've got to move 8 weeks and you still have to try to find a job, because again, these women are still not full-time paid athletes. I knew going into last season, I said, it's going to be a long year. I kept telling all the fans, I said, I know what you're thinking, but expectations need to be a little bit low. And it's not disrespectful to the team, but I kind of knew last year could happen the way it did. They worked their absolute tails off. They did everything they possibly could. They probably should have beat Essendon if it weren't for a goal judge error, but I digress. I won't go there. But and then the Hawthorn the Hawks game a couple of days before the grand final last year, where they just barely fell short. Eileen Gilroy, again, you magnificent beauty with a goal, but why'd you have to do it against us? So No, but it's been fun. Again, I agree with you. I think the Eagles, there's something missing. There's just something not right. There's so much young talent there. They're an incredible
Yeah.
team. Once they find what's missing, and I think this game, you look at it, 9 behinds, I think really killed them early. They could have had
Yes.
a nice little lead early if they would have kicked straight. So I think that's really what got them there. The Swans held on, kicking accurately. Again, it's bad kicking is bad footy, unfortunately. I'm not gonna change it because it's women kicking the football. So it's the honest to God truth there. 2-9 is probably what the West Coast Eagles coaching staff are going to focus on, at least when it comes to goal kicking practice this particular round. Now, as much as I love talking the Swans, let's move on to what has to be the game of the round. And I'll say this, Nikki, I'm so angry because this game and the Swans game run at the same time. And I so
Yes.
wanted to watch this game because I knew this was going to be the absolute banger of the round as the Brisbane Lions go to Tassie and get a 2-point win over the Roos, snapping the Roos undefeated streak down in Tasmania.
Fantastic.
And
Yes.
as we sent off Mike, this was probably the most impressive game of the round because I think a lot of people kind of thought Tassie, no Dakota Davidson, Brisbane Lions could be in trouble.
Me. Me.
Me
Affected
too.
my footy tips again. So yes, I was multitasking on the weekend. So when I was home, I was watching one of the games. I was watching the Sydney game on the television at home, and then I had it the other way around. I had the Swans game on my iPad, and then I had the North Lions game on the television. So when you have the sound up on both and you're hearing whistles and you're trying to figure out who's getting free kicks and what's going on, don't recommend. I was very confused there for a minute, so I had to turn the volume down on one of them. But yeah, no, the North and Lions game, definitely the match of the round. That was something else. Like it took a while. It took a while for a score in. I think it was late in the first quarter from memory for them to get a score, but you could see how both sides were just so desperate to not let the other get any advantage. And then as the game progressed, North sort of kicked away a little bit, and you thought, all right, well, come the second half, North will probably run off with this now that they've got the ascendancy. And it was noted at halftime. I think the reporter interviewed Emma Carney coming off the ground at halftime and talking about how North had never beaten the Lions in their history. So, and I was like, oh, I wonder if that's going to get into their head. And then come out in the second half, and the Lions kicked 2 quick goals in succession, and it was game on. So, yeah, it was interesting to see what pressure and perceived pressure can do to a side. So I would have thought that North had it in the bag, and then the Lions just didn't roll over. They just went, nope, we know what we've got to do, and they literally just got it done. So they are such a balanced side. I think that's why the grand final last year was so even and so low scoring, if you will, because their defense and they can read the play, and they know how to just stop that ball and stop the opposition from getting the ball, and then it just becomes an arm wrestle all around the ground, and they flex their muscles and hit the lead, and that was it.
And they run so well. They've got such great conditioning. It's the one thing you got to give Coach Starcevich. The big thing is he has picked a team that can run and run.
Yep.
I mean, they're like the Energizer Bunny. They're like the Energizer Bunny. They just don't stop. You literally have to beat them because you aren't going to outwork them. They're just such a good running side. And I think if they get going and get their run game going, I mean, again, Orlo O'Dwyer and Steph Conway out on the wings they just don't stop moving. They're everywhere. So it really does test your fitness a little bit when you play the Lions because they just don't stop going. They're just constant in movement, which is so difficult to defend as well. But both these teams, great structurally, defensively. Like this was a finals game in the home and away.
Oh, it was.
It was magnificent footy I had to watch it on replay and enjoyed it. I thoroughly did, even though spoilers, unfortunately, social media sometimes can be the bane of my existence when I'm trying to tweet about the Swans game and I'm seeing, OMG, the Lions did it. I was like, oh no, come on. So I knew the result before I went in to watch the game, which kind of stinks
Yes.
sometimes. It does make it just like
Yeah.
no, like North, and then it almost makes the win even more impressive since North did, like as you said, jumped out to a nice little lead early in the game, and I was just like,
Yeah.
that's not good. If I already know the Lions are going to win, and the Rouge are up like
Yeah.
15 or
Yep.
16. I was like, oh, Lions got their running game going for sure. So I North didn't lose anything in this. I mean, this is a good Lions
No,
team,
definitely
and
not.
it's home and away, so
Yep.
you'll lose a game here. I think their schedule this year will be a little bit less of a talking point when it comes to it. I think that the balance is a little bit more this year, but what an impressive game! So much fun again. I love
Yes.
that. More of this, please. More, please. More, please. Oh,
And
all
that was
right.
one of the things we were talking about offline as well, is like,
Yep.
how do you stop North's tall forward and how potent they are? And well, the Lions prove that's how you do it. Deny them the
Mhm.
ball in the middle.
Yep.
So
Which is interesting because I mean, when you got Ash Riddell, you've got Jazzy Garner, you got Jenna Bruton, and Emma King can come in there as your rock. That's an impressive situation, especially with Talia Hickey, who is not exactly the a girl with a ton of size. She is very much an endurance athlete, so she's a little
yeah.
bit slimmer when it comes to it. So for her to hold her own in the ruck battle, which again is not something that surprises me, Talia Hickey is a very good ruck for the Brisbane Lions. So it is so much fun, but they bat so deep in the midfield. It's so much fun to watch. Allie Anderson, Belle Dawes, and all of them just go through the midfield. It is a absolute treat to see what Coach Starcevich has done up in
Yes.
Queensland. So we'll jump to Windy Hill again. Windy Hill seems to be a plethora of wins. Essendon is undefeated at Windy Hill as they beat the Fremantle Dockers 50-30. The Dons looking impressive. I like it. And Bonnie Too Good. And I don't know. I have you heard my new nickname for Bonnie Too Good?
I have not.
Okay. It's a little bit of a dad joke, so bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. If anybody's got a rim shot, they can do it. And the people who've watched the podcast know this. Bonnie Justice just is too good.
Very good.
But
I like that. Yes.
I know rim shot. I know
Yes.
it's a dad joke
That's
horribly, but
a it's a
I
good
just
one.
I could not
But
hold back.
yes, and she was a huge factor in their win yesterday. So again, another double match, because
Mhm.
the next game we're going to talk about, it was also on at the same time. So again, confusing my poor little brain with all the whistles going on. But yeah, no, yeah, Freo, like they played Freo, and Freo, I don't want to say that they're in a rebuilding phase, but they're struggling a little bit this season. So when I look at my each game that comes in, and try to see how teams are going, and especially when it comes to doing my footy tips, because I'm very competitive and don't like to lose. And
I love it.
I actually tipped the Bombers as my outsider for my tipping this week, because I actually
Mhm.
thought Freo on paper would be
Mhm.
probably a more experienced side, and would probably show where there's holes, if there is, if you will, at the Bombers. But kudos to Natalie Wood, who, just side note, I have played some football with at the Darebin Falcons over 35s this season. She's like done a wonderful job just being able to get the best out of the players at the Bombers, and I think they're all really settled in their positions, and they know their roles. So like pressing forward, it's just relentless. It's just push that ball forward, get it forward, and get that shot on goal. When you have Bonnie Too Good that can take a contested mark so well inside 50, they're doing really well. And obviously Maddie Prasparkas as well is having another great season, and you just watch. I love the way she goes about it. I have been very vocal of the fact that I also think she would look really good in a Melbourne jumper, but apparently we can't have all the good players. So
I love it. Hey, that's a fan for you. I truly appreciate it. And Maddie, and I love that she's so passionate for the Essendon Football Club,
Oh,
and that's her
yes.
club. And I love it
Yep.
because it shows that passion in an absolutely great. And to see Windy Hill getting it's plaudits for the Essendon Football Club because there's so much history there, and for them to again
Yep.
be 2-0, this is one of those games where it is a little frustrating because I think Kiera Bowers is definitely a linchpin for this team, but I'm I don't like saying this, but I'm going to be honest. Haley Miller, somebody put her on a milk carton because she's a little bit missing a little bit for Fremantle, which is odd for me because
Mm,
she's not having the impact on games that I think I'm used to. Maybe it's
yep.
expectations a little bit. And again, it means, I mean, absolutely no disrespect. And again, Haley Miller, an incredible player, but she's not making the impact on the game that I'm used to. And with Kiara Bowers going out in this game mid third quarter with an apparent knee injury that took forever for the broadcast to actually let us know about because I kept looking at the ground going because I was watching this one, unfortunately. So I planned on watching the St. Kilda Collingwood game a little bit later. I kept going,
Yeah.
where's Turbo? Where's Turbo? They
Where is
kind
she?
of
Yeah.
need her. And it was like, it's like, where is, and then they finally kind of addressed it like 30 minutes later. It was like early fourth quarter, like, yeah, we're like, we think Kiara Bowers has a knee injury. And there was almost kind of this confusion, like they didn't even know. Like I'm not sure if Fremantle was not being forthcoming on injury issues. I don't know, but it was a very weird situation there for their kind of between the third and the fourth quarters, and it kind of got away from Fremantle at that time. And I
Yeah.
don't believe Turbo came back in the game, but Anya Tig again, I'll tip my hat. She's playing absolutely fantastic. She's doing everything that she possibly can for this Fremantle Dockers team, but just the linchpin of Kira Bowers has been noticeable when she's not on the ground. It does affect this Fremantle Dockers team, which is a little frustrating a little bit because you would think, okay, you have to be able to respond. I know she's a great player. I know she's your captain. She's somebody that everybody looks forward to being led by, but when she leaves the ground, something changes in that midfield, and it's very, very, very obvious. And so I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Hopefully she's not out long
Yeah.
if she is out, but
Hope she's all right. Yes. I must have
so
missed that. I must have been I was watching the Saints and Magpies match on the television. So I could, you know, did get a little bit distracted with that, how that match progressed. But
yeah.
yeah, no, hopefully she's okay. And I think too with Haley Miller, again, the players are great and she's a wonderful leader. I think it's the players you have around you as well.
Hmm.
So if she hasn't got that support around the ground and getting that, then then her game is maybe going to suffer because she's got to do the sacrifices
Hmm.
to help her team where she can. And I just love watching Ebony Antonio play. Doesn't matter
Hmm.
what she does. I think she's a phenomenal player, and she's also like Cara Barras. She's one of those players that can ignite her team. So to be able to keep her relatively quiet is kudos to the Bombers because she can be an explosive and a damaging player.
Yeah, she's one of those. She doesn't have to have a ton of touches to make an impact. I mean, she did have a
Correct.
goal with only 9 disposals at this game, but that is a little
Yep.
bit lower than you would expect for an absolutely elite superstar that is Ebony
Mm.
Antonio. So I think that's a great transition because, as you said, another one of this pair of matchups, and I'm almost kicking myself because I probably should have been watching the Saint kill the Collingwood one because the Saints, as we said, some upsets as the Saints knock off the Pies 47-35. And I think as we both kind of said off mic, I really kind of feel like, and I'm not trying to dissuade Collingwood supporters here, but Lauren Butler and Schleicher, Ruby Schleicher not being in this roster, it is definitely noticeable. It is definitely noticeable. Bree Davy is a fantastic player, but Collingwood has kind of almost become a little Bree dependent. And when she left the ground with an ankle injury midway there, Britt Benici did everything that she possibly could. She had quite a good game for the Pies here in this one, but I'm a little worried when it comes to it until Ruby and Lauren are back. This Pies team is unfortunately they're susceptible, and St. Kilda, a scrappy bunch that I think is still kind of getting to know everybody a little bit with all of the changes that this St. Kilda side had to do. Tip my cap to you, Saints. You get a win. So
Yes, probably one of my favorite wins for the round was the fact that the Saints haven't started the season great. It's been talks of, even mates of mine are disappointed in how their season's progressed. That they expected them to be a bit more competitive from the beginning of the season, and it hasn't quite gone their way. But to see them claw back from a 20-point deficit at 3/4 time, to get a 2-goal win, I think it was in the end, is like a 32-point turnaround or something. Or that's how it worked out. But yeah, like it was pleasing to see that they could put it together, and they actually played that last quarter that St Kilda put together was quite phenomenal. Like they kept Collingwood scoreless, which is huge, and they just applied that pressure. Given that they had the wind with them, you wouldn't say it was a 5-goal advantage though. They just were relentless. They didn't let Collingwood get an easy possession. They locked the ball in their forward half in that last quarter and just persevered, and they maintained that belief, and that got them over the line. So we talk about where we think Collingwood are lacking a bit at the moment, and I think you and I were talking, we expected them to be at least top 4, top 5 finish. And it's surprising to us that they're currently sitting 1-3 after 4 rounds. But I think the endeavour and kudos to the Saints for their hard work. And I just I'm a big fan of Bianca Jacobson. She's a really good friend of mine, and to see her do so well what she did in the last quarter and played her role, and Darcy Guttridge was also huge, and we're getting to see now Warlaw starting to find her feet and her role at the Saints, and swapping in and out of the ruck, and as well as pushing forward is huge. So, but definitely having Jamie Lambert and Steph Chiocci come over from the Pies has been a huge influence, just helping settle that midfield. But I think you got to take your hats off to Patrikios, who was massive in that last quarter. She basically won that game for them with just her pressure and pushing the ball forward and doing what she could. So yeah, no, it was a huge game. Probably, like I said, probably my favorite win from the round.
Yeah, a gorgeous snap by Georgia Pachikios putting in. And when your midfielders, Jamie Lambert, Georgia Pachikios, can put in goals, that definitely helps. That definitely helps out for sure. And again, I kind of knew St. Kilda would kind of have a few issues early because they're trying to get to know, because they had such a turnover. I mean, Wardlaw, Lambert, Chiocci, there's so many new faces stepping in that I think I knew it was going to take a little bit of time. This shocked me a little bit, but then again, like I said, I think Collingwood was vulnerable because of the fact that, again, they're missing 2 of their really good defenders that I think really give them some run off halfback. So this is a Pies team. I still think they'll make finals. The biggest question will be is how soon can they get Ruby and Lauren back, and will they be fully fit? Because if they come back underdone, that's my worry. That are they gonna panic after a loss to St. Kilda? They're going to try to rush them back, and then they get re-injured, and it actually costs them their season and maybe even the finals as well. So I just hope that there's no jumping to conclusions a little bit off of this loss, that they panic because they're 1-3. Like I just don't want it to panic. There's still 6 games. There's still plenty of time to get into the finals. There's going to be a lot of turnover because a lot of these teams are going to be playing each other over the next few rounds. Just don't panic. Don't jump the gun here if you're the Collingwood coaching staff, because I think that could be an absolute disaster. It could tank your season very quickly if they come back and they re-injure, if they come back underdone and get re-injured. So, and then let's go to it. The last one up in the Gold Coast, as the Sunnies get a 4-point win over the Western Bulldogs. I'll say this, I'm very happy that the Doggies played a super competitive game. I've been really worried about them because they have been very, very iffy this entire season. And this is a Suns team that on their day are very, very good when they can get their game going. Tara Bohannon is playing fantastic. Charlie Rowbottom is absolute bull. I love watching her play. She's so much fun to watch. And to see the emergence of Claudia Whitford and Jamie Stanton this year has been fantastic for the Sunnies, getting a 4-point win. And the doggies, tip your caps, ladies. You played your absolute tails off, just fell a little bit short, but I'm glad to see them playing in competitive footy games. Though frustrating, now 0-4.
Yeah, definitely. I'm loving the games that the Suns have put together this season. They're very exciting to watch, and Jamie Stanton up forward has been huge. Currently leading the goal kicking, so and you can see why she's leading the goal kicking. But like with the Doggies, I think they've just been unlucky. They're just not quite polished enough to play out games. They were unlucky to not beat the Hawks down in Ballarat when they played them, and even against like Melbourne, I was at the game and they were very competitive. They just where Melbourne put the foot down in the second half. It was still competitive and it was still a fierce contest. And I know that there's a rivalry between Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs at the best of times, but it was that doggy spirit that still showed throughout the whole game. And you could see it again last night up on the Gold Coast. So, had they, in that last quarter, had they had a couple of bounces go their way, the Doggies were away and they could have had a shot on goal and we might be talking about a different result in the end. So, it's that oval ball can make you or break you in moments like this. And unfortunately, unfortunately for the Doggies, it didn't go their way. Unfortunate for the Suns, they got to hold on.
Yeah, and unfortunately, from what I hear, is that they've had a ton of injury interrupted preseasons. I know was it Christy Lamb had a calf niggle that was really affecting her training, so she's been a little bit off. And then unfortunately, I think it was Elle Bennett tore her ACL last week, so they've had some rotten luck a little bit to the Doggies. But again, I agree with you. They fight. I mean, when you're led by Ellie Blackburn, you're gonna fight your absolute tail off. I absolutely love her. I would take her on any team at any day because she's an absolute superstar. So the Doggies, they'll figure it out. Even unfortunately, if this season is lost, this is a Doggies team that they're young. There's still a ton of talent on this list. It's just, unfortunately, with a 10-game season, you can bury yourself quite quickly, unfortunately, and it's sad to say that. But so we'll go from that, which actually I think is a great transition that I bring up games, because Nikki, we have a new CBA for the women's competition.
Sure,
and I know that the AFL will come out here and they will trumpet this and trumpet that and talk about this. Be honest with me, with the new CBA being signed, I want you to go off it, pros and cons of the new agreement, because I see some good pros, but there is the big con that I know everybody's discussing, and that's games played.
Correct. Yes. Well, I noted down pros and cons, and I have a lot more cons than I do for pros. Progress is good. It's always good. Pay rises are great, but the CBA was a joint one with the AFL men's, and we know that the AFL men's are going to benefit a lot better from this CBA than what the women's competition will do. My biggest frustration is the number of rounds in the season. So they've said that they will increase the rounds to 11, 12 matches, looking to go to 14. But there's a big asterisk next to it, and there has to be, you have to get a minimum of 5,000 to 6,000 people to your games. It's really hard when they schedule matches out in the suburbs at 5 o'clock on a Friday evening when people work, school holidays, people are away, especially this time of year. It's well known that a lot of Victorians generally go out to Queensland this time of year on school holidays. So, unfortunately, I couldn't get to the game on Friday, but I actually asked my work if I could swap my shifts to try and get to the game for at least quarter time, so I could get there on Friday. This Thursday, Melbourne play Geelong at 6 o'clock, which doesn't seem like a bad thing. It's also the Thursday night is the leading into the 3-day long weekend here for the public holiday on Friday. So we know that people are going to be clogging up the roads, getting away, those who can't take time off during the school holidays. So, they're shooting themselves in the foot every time they say, oh, we want to make progress. And yet we know that all these times that are slotted is won by the AFL but it's also
Mhm.
by their broadcast partners. So what suits them. Every match Fox Footy have shown starting at 5 o'clock, and there's been a men's final after it. They cut away as soon as the final siren goes. You don't even get to see the players enjoy their win. You don't get to hear the song. And then they go on to a program that talks about the men's match for 2 hours before the first bounce. So it tells you where the broadcasters' priorities lie. And I think it's time that the AFL, going in with this CBA, have a separate broadcast agreement for the men's competition and the women's competition until they can decide what the best time of year to have the AFLW season.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I've seen your very angry but warranted tweets on this particular fact. And I know that was the big con that I saw, is like when they put in the asterisk of according to attendances and watching, and I went, well, then bugger the men's competition and put the women's game on at 7 o'clock the same time as the finals, and let's just see what happens. Like, I'm very frustrated personally because, again, I'm super invested in this women's competition. I think this is a growth area that the AFL just need to really understand, that this is the growth area. Men's growth is not going to happen much more. There's no more growth that you are not going to extract any more juice from that particular lemon. You're not.
No.
The women, there are tons of growth opportunities in women's footy. And the problem that you see is that they give you the lip service about, we're going to do this, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
But then my favorite part is,
then
even in the discussions, they're like, well, what about the ratings? I'm like, okay, what about the ratings? Did you give us the best opportunity? It's like giving a basketball team 4 players to play 5 and telling them you got to go win.
Yep, that's right.
It is asinine. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, they're gonna champion the pay, which, again, I understand, and I agree exactly what you said. It is great that these women are going to be paid to the point where most of them are going to be full-time athletes. They're going to be able to do it, but they champion it so much that it's like, I think they think that we're stupid and we're not going to look behind the curtain and go, well, wait, you're only giving the girls 12 games, but not for another 2 years. And then the asterisk of, well, it could be 14. No, it's not be, because the metrics that you are putting down, you basically already told the women, we don't plan on getting you more than 12 games.
Correct.
Because the metrics are not going to change unless all of a sudden women's footy becomes the greatest thing since sliced bread. And again, I think it is, but again, I know what I'm watching. I know the difference between a women's match and a men's match. Unfortunately, there's still some people that for some reason think that the women's footy should be the same as the men's footy, even though women's footy has not had the coaching or the pathways or anything like that. For the all intents and purposes, I know women have been playing footy for 30, 40 years. Understand that. Professionally, elite wise, it is 7, 8 years old.
Yep. And also, men and women are built differently. So women aren't going to kick the football the same way men do. And that's a fact. So, the whole garbage about playing on smaller grounds and blah, 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 and all that background noise, the AFL keep listening to that and not listen to the real fans, to the people who want to see this competition succeed. Like the last CBA, the promise was once every team was in the competition, each season that progressed, there would be 1 or 2 more seasons, 2 more rounds added to the season until eventually everyone plays each other at least once. They obviously reneged on that and they went back again with the new agreement, and it was why there was a stalemate for as long as it has been. But I think right now the AFLW is screaming out for their own Megan Rapinoe or their own Lucy Bronze, the US women's team, the Lionesses, the Matildas. They need someone to step up and say, no, this is not good enough. We won't take this. We're a professional team. You want us to grow. Look at the success of the Matildas. Even the NRLW are doing what they can to make it a positive thing. And the AFL come out and beat their chest last time and said we want to be the competition or the sport that pays our female athletes the highest. They're going to be the highest paid athletes in the country, and they can't even give them a season where each team plays each other at least once.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows you that the bravado was just to make the peace and just to make it look like they're doing something. And then when it comes down to the nitty gritty, there's still not enough backing from AFL HQ. There's not enough backing from the clubs either. This is where I get really frustrated. It was a combined thing with the men's and the women's. Where are the male players coming in and fighting for their female counterparts, going, hang on a second, we're getting all the stuff that we beat our chests about. Why can't the players at least have a longer season? And why is this always an issue? And why does it have to come back to ratings on a broadcast channel?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that I'm very passionate about is the fact that no one seems to be standing up for this competition, and I want to know why.
Yeah, it's just and the ones that do are very quiet, and it's not like going out and having like a press conference and being like every single one, like 3 or 4 of the, like, if in my opinion, it's like if a Dangerfield, if a Christian Petrarca, if a Lynch from the Richmond Tigers, a Bontempelli, all 4 of them came out, sat down, and we went, we're here to support the women's game. You may see something, but it's the fact that it's radio silence. I understand it's the finals, and there's all the detractors did it. Shut up. You are wasting your time. All you are is a misogynistic fool that just you don't want women to succeed. Stop lying to yourself. My favorite is that many of them, if you look at their Facebook pages, they have daughters, and my favorite response to them is it's like, okay, go look at your daughter and tell them that to their face. Have the balls to say that, because if you're going to say it online, have the balls to say it to your child.
Tell your child. Yeah,
because you won't, because you're a gutless coward. You only say it online because you know the anonymity. You can get away with saying it. You can go on, you can make a burner account, you can say something absolutely pathetically piggish and misogynistic, and you can get away with it because there's no accountability when it comes to it. The women, they play their asses off, and sometimes I think they play harder than the men. I don't care who gets angry with me, comment section, I don't care. The women is so much fun to watch because there's a passion for it. I think it is such a better place for everybody to enjoy the footy because the fan bases respect each other. There is a toxicity in the fan base in the men sometimes that is disgusting to me. And you look at the women's games and everybody's sitting together, everybody's chatting, everybody's having a good time. You're just supporting these fantastic women that are elite athletes that are doing something that most people could only dream of, that they are getting the chance to do what they didn't get to do. Like we said, Brianna Tarrant, she dreamt about playing as a Swans player. She has that opportunity now. Maddie Pismarcus dreamt of being an Essendon player. She gets that opportunity now. Don't think that the women can't do this. And I'll as you, to kind of go off something that you said, and then we need to move on a little bit because we could talk about this this could be a 3-hour episode if we wanted to just talk about this. I have said this in a few episodes, and I've had a few people back me on this. I think the men's and the women's games should switch. I think the men should be playing the women's rules, the lasso rule, the 16 aside, because I think with the longer kicks, and again, I will air quote that because there are some women in the competition that can kick it further than some of the men do, and I have proof. I can show you video footage of Ali Morfitt kicking a 60-meter drop punt, and there's guys in the AFL that can barely kick it 35 straight. So, reel it in.
we digress.
I really think that they should switch. I think there should be 18. I think there should be 18 women on the field instead of 16. I think they should not have the lasso rule in the women's because some of these women are still progressing in their skills. So they are being punished for the skill progression that they need to get. The men these kids they've been professional for years now. There's so much more coaching, unfortunately, in the women in the men's game. Unfortunately, make the men play 16 aside. Make them play with the lasso. Make them play with the lasso rule. Then you don't have the the drama that is the insufficient intent, whatever argument, but they won't do it. And they won't do it. And then, like I said, and I've heard people say, why don't they play it on smaller grounds? I said, no, why? They don't play in a smaller basketball hoop. They don't play rugby on a smaller pitch. So why did the AFLW women have to play on a smaller pitch? That doesn't make any sense. The reason that there's an issue when it comes to it is they have two less players on the field. Their rules are different. They play shorter quarters than the men do. I mean, I can literally point out 5 or 6 reasons of why the women's games are lower scoring, because they have less time, they have less players, there's more fatigue. And this year they added the rotational thing. So it's going to be even more. And I also agree with what one person said. Fatigue is not going to increase scoring. Fatigue is going to increase errors, which is only going to give more fodder
100%.
to these morons on the sidelines. So
correct.
I understand the rotation cap. I do. I think it's great. I don't think it should have been 60. I think it should have been 75 personally. But
see, I don't agree. I don't understand how it makes a difference rotating a player if you want to keep players fresh, you want to get higher scores. I don't think there should be a cap on rotations. Maybe they want to bring into having a sub player into the women's, but again, they've got to have 18 on the field first. They have increased the quarters. I think it's to 18 minutes now plus time on, so it's gone up.
I think it's 17, but now they're playing time on in the final 2 minutes.
There's time.
So it's a little bit
correct.
different.
So, the quarters are going that little bit longer. They're going up to at least 24. I think I've worked out it's about 30 seconds to a minute, depending on what happens when there's a goal kick. So you can add, you can work out what the extra time is going to be. So of course, they're progressing it slowly, but still 24 minutes. Like that's just into time on in the men's, and that's what I think statistics showed that the most scores happen in the men's competition is in the second half of each quarter when fatigue and that starts to kick in. So I don't know. It's sometimes I think they make rules just for the fun of it, like that lasso rule for last touch out of bounds for the women's. Why are we having boundary umpires? Like there's no need for them to be in between the arcs. They might as well just both be on inside 50, because that's the only time they're required. So it's like it's just silly rules that just drive me insane.
I have no problem with it. I don't mind the lasso rule because I think I how to say this. I think it forces players not to just go down the line. It makes them have to test their kicks a little bit more, which I think honestly keeps the ball in play, because it's one of my pet peeves I have with the men's is way too many. It's bomb it down the line. Like that gets very, very frustrating when it's like bomb it down the line, knocked out of bounds, throw it back in, knocked out of bounds, throw it back in, knocked out of bounds. Like they'll spend 3 minutes on one side of the field because they can't keep the ball in play. So it's like
a good tactical play when you're trying to maintain the lead.
I agree completely. I understand tactically, but when it comes to the neutral that wants to watch the game, we have to pander to the neutral that has the attention span of a gnat, and we have to have scoring. I could go on a long diatribe about how I love 60 to 55 men's games because they're absolutely scintillating, because it's good defensive footy along with being tight games. That's why sometimes the women's games I think are more entertaining, because they're usually more competitive and they're usually tighter because of the time frame and everything that goes. It's like I like a good old-fashioned defensive battle. I like seeing the structures of the two defensive teams. I'm weird like that. Maybe it's the coach in me, but 100 to 105 is not always an entertaining game. It may mean absolute crap defense. So why is that a great game? It's only a great game because both teams scored 100 points. Well, congratulations. How good's your defense? Swiss cheese. That's how good your defense is. So all right. You and I could go on for 3 hours because there's so much passion there, and I appreciate it. And I knew you I had seen your tweets about it, and I wanted to let you have your little bit of time to absolutely go off on it. And again, I love the passion for it because there's a passion for these women and a passion for this competition, and I absolutely enjoy that. So we'll reel back to the women's footy a little bit. And I'll say this, we had discussed this, a huge win by the Lions on the road, knocking off North again. As we said, yes, North hadn't beat the Brisbane Lions, but North had not lost and Tassie. So one of the streaks was going to break. Was this the most impressive win of the season by any team this year?
Yes, I think so. I think it's up there. It's in my top three. Bit of a left field. I think the Tigers win over the Lions in the first round was my favorite win. It was up in Brisbane, and two games now the Tigers have beaten the Lions in the season. Obviously, they didn't beat them in the finals, but can almost start to say that there's going to be a bit of a rivalry between the two teams now, and maybe the Tigers are the Lions' bogey side. So I wonder, what the next matchup where they meet, how that goes. That was one of my favorite wins for the season so far. But yeah, no, the Northern and Lions game. So there's two matches that the Lions have been in that have been ripper games. And like I said earlier, also the Saints come back to knock over the Pies is also a good win of mine. I do love when the underdog gets up, and especially in the manner that they did. So they didn't roll over and die. 20 points down is really a huge deficit in AFLW. So for them to claw it back and in a quarter is quite impressive.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. When it comes to it, no Dakota Davidson makes it even more impressive because it was one less weapon for the Lions to use. But I'm with you. I think it's a tie because the Saints beating the Collingwood Magpies, again, I know a little bit of an asterisk with the Pies being a little bit injured, but that's footy for you. That was impressive. That was a very impressive win by the Saints. I know Nick Del Santo's group again was still gelling and everything like that, but a very, very impressive win. So I'll go with you. We'll tie with those two as being the most impressive. And again, Richmond going up to Springers and getting a massive win to start the season that definitely shocked a few people. The Tigers have a great roster, but I think a lot of people expected Starcevich has plenty of off season to get his group together. So for them to go on the road and get a big win for the Tigers was absolutely fantastic to start their season. Kind of put a little bit of doubt into some people's minds on Brisbane, but again, that's Brisbane is Brisbane, so we don't have to worry about that. So they've made up for it. So, and then we go to last question of my burning questions here. And as I tell people, if I know that you are a huge supporter of a club, I always throw in a question about your club. So I'll let you gush, Nikki here. The D's look very, very good. We discussed this off mic. Can the D's be the first team to ever go back-to-back premiers?
Absolutely. I think the brand of footy that they're playing at the moment, and like I touched on earlier, the fact that they've just gelled so well, like across the lines. There's no weak point in if someone else will step in and help, and you see the likes of Liv Purcell and Tyler Hanks and Kate Hoare and all the midfield. Paxy's having another ripper season. And on Friday night, we introduced the AFLW world to Amy Mackin alongside her sister Laheen. So, and I said, watching her highlights and what she can do in Gaelic football and what she's been doing at training. So when she gets into that side, Melbourne will go up next level. So they're still on the improve. I mean, it's a team that's keeping out Gab Colvin, Ree Watt, and Geordie Ivey at the moment from getting a game because it's so competitive and so hard to get into that squad. So most definitely, I think they can go back to back. And like I said before, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's the list because no one wanted to leave," and I think that's the crux of it. Like I said, it's the Daisy Pearce effect. No one wants to leave because it's good culture. The club believes in the program. The club is making this program work, and Mick Stanier is a fantastic coach. They listen to him talk. There was just before the season started, they did a mini documentary about winning the flag last year. And they were talking, they did snippets of it that they were showing, but there was the whole video on the D's page and talking about getting that win for Daisy, and just to see him tear up and what it meant to him to get the win to Daisy. It's what he is for every single player on that list. So it's the culture and the massive preseason. Like they've been doing their own preseason before they were officially back together in May.
Mhm.
So yeah, definitely the D's will go back to back. I'm quite convinced of it.
Yeah, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to my preview, but I had the Liam from the Soaring to New Heights podcast, which is a Hawthorne podcast, and he said in his opinion, if Melbourne he thinks can go undefeated. He doesn't think there's a team in the comp that can beat them as of right now with the group that they had. I said it in the preseason as well. I think yes, they lost Daisy Pierce to retirement, but adding Amy Mackin and just progressing the group that they already had, I think Melbourne got better from last year, which is scary to think. And I talked with Michael Curran of AFLW Ireland, and he was one of the people that talked with Amy Mackin, and he said, he goes, they got a gem. He goes, the fact that Blaheen was already there, he goes, Melbourne got probably one of the best Irish players to come over this year. Like legitimately, he goes, her and I think it was one of the girls that went to Geelong were the two that he said this year, he said, will make the biggest impact when they step on the field. He goes, that's how good they are. I mean, I think Amy was the best player of the year in Ireland in 2021. Correct. So it was insane how good she was. She wanted to come over, or something didn't work out last year. They wanted her to come over last year. So if Melbourne can stay healthy, which I think that's the overall arching thing that I think people when you do your tips at the start of the year, you go on paper a little bit. But if injury doesn't hurt Melbourne, there's very few teams in the competition that have the depth that Melbourne does. So they have a very, very good shot. I think North, again, it's kind of the four-headed monster that is the top of the competition with Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane, and North. I mean, those will be your four. So it'll be fascinating to see, but I agree. I think Melbourne is definitely one of they are the tip of the spear when it comes to the competition. So we jump
and we play, and everyone plays each other throughout the season. So
you will definitely get your who is where. So all right, so we go to the little part of the podcast. I kind of take over a little bit, but I will try to make sure to get Nikki plenty in this. So we go to the team of the week. I do my team of the week where I put together, and I've modified it a little bit. I tried to be sure that all these positions, that I try to keep players in the positions that they normally play. So wings are now in effect. So just like with the men's, unlike the All-Australian, I try to be sure that forwards are forwards, midfielders are midfielders. So there may be a few that aren't in here. I know we can have a discussion online. It's fine. So here we go. Team of the week, starting in the fullback, we have Karen Peterson of the Carlton Blues and Fremantle's Emma O'Driscoll. At the halfback line sees Rebecca Webster of the Geelong Cats, Emma Carney of the North Melbourne Roos, and Elizabeth Georgia Stathis from the Western Bulldogs. Out on the wing sees Adelaide's Neve Kelly and Geelong's Nina Morrison out on the wings. In the midfield, we see Adelaide's Anne Hatchard, Sydney's Chloe Malloy, and North's Jasmine Garner. I go by goals a little bit, so if Chloe Malloy kind of jumps off the page for some people, she kicked 2 goals. She was one of the few midfielders that kicked 2 goals. That's why, just to explain there. And the ruck sees Sabrina Frederick of the Collingwood Magpies as the starting ruck. Half forward line sees Melbourne's Eden Zanka, Adelaide's Eloise Jones, and Port Adelaide's Gemma Houghton. And the full forward line sees Bonnie Justice Too Good and Geelong's Chloe Shear. On the bench, I do defender, midfielder, rock, forward, and utility. Defender Kelsey Skepa went back and played defense in this game, did very, very well for the Blues. Midfielder Emma Swanson, you kick a goal of the year. I got to tip my cap to you, young lady. Fantastic performance there. Nikki, the jersey that's rocking behind you is my ruck defense, as Lauren Pierce is the ruck on the bench as she shows it off like Vanna White. Love it. Forward,
the greatest AFLW ruck of all time.
Right now it's hard to make many arguments against that. At the forward line, she's Richmond's Katie Brennan. Again, fantastic performance by Katie. Great to see that she is healthy. And my utility, give a shout out to maybe an unknown surprise here, and that's the Western Bulldogs. Deanna Barry is the utility for this particular round. I know a lot of names really, really quickly. Your thoughts just real quick on this team of the week.
Wouldn't want to be going up against them if they were playing together this week for sure. Yeah, no, great inclusions and not your the ones that most people would go for. I love it.
Mhm,
I do love it. And Dee Berry has been wonderful for the doggies.
mhm,
I don't know, she missed I think at least round one with an injury. So
mhm.
to have her back in the side has really helped those doggies. So
Yeah, and I know there's people like it's a bit stiff. What about Ebony Marinoff? Well, she had 40 disposals, but she didn't kick any goals. So again, I'm splitting hairs with this midfield. I know
she can't
Georgie.
win everything.
I know. Well, and that's the thing though, is Anne Hatchard has been the one that's kind of been the midfielder that goes forward and kind
Yeah.
of sits full forward sometimes. So it's a little bit easier for her to kick goals. Nafi kind of stays in the middle a lot more because I think she's got just a little less bigger tank. So it's one of those. I'm
Yep.
not trying to punish her, but it's how I split hairs. I mean, Georgie Pasparkas
Yes.
is stiff. I think she had 20. I think she had 20 disposals and a goal in this one, or no, she had 17 and a goal in this one. But so I know there's going to be that are a few that are stiff, and I know I always get a message here too. Why didn't you have? And it's like, okay, let's have a discussion. Why? And then I will come out with how I do it. It's always so much fun. So, and then we
It's your
have
team. You
uh,
get to choose.
this is true. And like I said, I try to stay to how I kind of my metrics on how I do that. And I've been really good with that. So, alrighty, we go to power rankings again. My homage to the fourth and long part of the podcast. This is the debut. Nikki, you are lucky. You get the debut power
Hi.
rankings for the AFLW season. We will start with 5, the Richmond Tigers at number 5. Number 4, the Gold Coast Suns. I'm going to tip my cap to the Sunnies. Fantastic work to start the season. Number 3, the Brisbane Lions. Number 2, the Adelaide Crows. And number 1, the Melbourne Demons. Cannot say anything else but that. Undefeated, still not been touched. So again, I kind of go off. What have you done for me lately? I like to make sure that we get at least 3 to 4 games in for the women before I start the power rankings, because one game in the year, it's really difficult to split the 8 teams that win, the 9 teams that win and the 9 teams that don't. So I wait 3 or 4 rounds to kind of get a little bit of a form guide and then go from there. So not many arguments there. You can kind of go off the top of the ladder on this early in the year. So we've come to it. My favorite part, and the part that we've our self-professed very competitive tipper here in Nikki. So let's go to it. I know we're still early. Teams aren't out yet. The injury reports still haven't 100% fell, but let's get to it. Let's tip this round, and we start off with an absolute cracker as your Melbourne Demons travel down the highway to GMHBA Stadium down in Geelong to face a very good Cats team. Is it your head or your heart that rules here? Melbourne, Geelong, who do you got?
Melbourne for sure. North proved that they can be beaten down there, and it's going to be a closer contest than I think most think. But I think the D's will put the foot down, and let's see if they can go 14 games without conceding a score in the last quarter.
Yep. I think this is. I think at three. I think this is close till 3/4 time, and then Melbourne's skilling class. I think just a little too much come the fourth quarter, and I think this goes from an inside 10 game to probably a 20-30 point game at the end of it. It is no disrespect to the Cats, but they just got so many waves and so many talents that I think the Cats just are going to get a little bit overrun, especially. And I think Lauren Pierce has a huge advantage which will give the likes like Olivia Purcell and Eliza and the midfield of the Melbourne Demons a lot of footy to start off with on that. So we jump to Icon Park as the Richmond Tigers host the Fremantle Dockers on this one. I like the Tigers. Again, another travel. They have to go. I'm not sure if Fremantle went home for this one or not, but if they did, that's a lot of travel for 2 games. So I think I'm going to tip the Tigers on this one. I think Tigers just a little bit too good. Hoping Kiera Bowers is healthy and able to play in this one, because Kiera Bowers, Conti, that's a mouth-watering matchup there.
Yes, most definitely. Yep, I'm siding with the Tigers for this one as well. I think they're playing some really good footy at the moment. So that'll be a good game.
Alrighty, we jump to the next one. This one's interesting. I can't wait to hear your response on this one. Icon Park, Carlton v Sydney.
I think Carlton just and only because it's being played at Icon. So happy to be wrong. Not really, because I don't like losing tipping, but I just think that it'll be a close game, just like the Carlton Richmond game was this last round. But I think Carlton and I'm saying like less than a kick in it.
See, and I'm exactly with you all up until the result. I think Chloe Malloy magic or a like a Lucy McAvoy slipping forward and finding a kick. I think Sydney win this. I'm interested to see, can Allie Morfitt have a big game against a combination of Bree Moody and Jess Good. I want to see this, because if she can get up in this game, I think she can give Sydney that advantage. Laura Gardner coming in, I think has played really, really well. It'd be fantastic to see this one. I think Sydney I like the way their momentum is going. I think Carlton has some susceptibilities going forward. And when you have Cynthia Hamilton, Brooke Lachlan, and some of the speed that Sydney has up forward, it'll be interesting to see how that back line handles a little bit more pressure than I think they've seen in previous games. So I'll go red hat just a little bit. Usually I tend to tip the favorite, which is Carlton, and then just hope that I get it wrong and Sydney win. So it's a win-win either way. If I get the tip, I get the tip right. If I lose, hey, my team wins. So it's kind of a win-win either way. So a fun one here. We go over to the Witten over in the kennel as the Western Bulldogs host the Saints. And I think the Saints mojo continues. I'm going to tip the Saints in this one in what some people might say is an upset.
Yeah, I can see that happening. Only because it's back at the Witten, I'm going to tip the doggies. So I think being 0-4 is going to be a real fire in the belly for them. I think they'll get off to a good start, and it might be a little bit too much for the Saints to reel back in. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm having fun. I'm having fun a little bit with this. I'm tipping a few more upsets than I think some people would probably expect on this one. So, all right, we'll jump out west all the way out to Mineral Resources Park as the West Coast Eagles host the Port Adelaide Power. Who do you like in this one?
Port Adelaide, I think. Port have got a bit more firepower around the ground, and think they might be just a little bit too strong for the poor Eagles. So yeah, happy to be wrong. Not really, but
I'm with you. I like the power. I like the power in this one. Gemma Houghton, I think, could have a field day with this defense, especially.
Right.
It'll be definitely fun. Matilda Schultz, does Sarah LeKay get up? Unfortunately, she was a late out in this one, which I think I would have loved to see Sarah LeKay, Allie Morfitt this last game. And I think they definitely could tell Zoe Wakefer is doing everything that she can, but she is still a young ruck that still needs to and still has a few things to learn and a few things to progress on. But I think she will show why she was a top pick very, very soon. She just unfortunately ran into an absolute monster in Allie Morfitt. So it'll be interesting if Sarah LeKay can't. It's two very young, talented ruckmen, and Zoe Wakefer and Matilda Schultz will be fantastic. I think the power just a little too much overall talent. Abby Dower, Hannah Ewings, Aaron Phillips. I think they just have a little bit too much firepower there, but I think this could be a really good one out west. Also, also at Mineral. Wait, that's got to be a typo. Okay, and my tipping thing that I have has the Calling Essendon game at Mineral Resources Park. I'm going to check on. I know exactly. I'm like, this is not what
Collingwood and Essendon. This has been something that I've been very vocal about too. Is now at Punt Road, because the men's team want their ground back for the grand final,
so they can have a watch party for the grand final. Yeah.
Why don't they just play this game at Vic Park?
Yeah,
it's Collingwood's home ground.
Yeah,
and Richmond can't play any home games at Punt Road. So why all of a sudden can Collingwood play a game there? And Essendon.
I don't know. I'm not going to go off that. All right, Collingwood v Essendon in this one. I'm going to tip Essendon in this one. Unfortunately, I think unless Ruby Schleicher and Butler are back, which again, I know it's still early in this round, but if they aren't back, I think Maddie Prasparkas and Bonnie Too Good could be absolutely Maddie Prasparkas, Bree Davy, another mouth-watering matchup in that mid. Yeah. Hopefully Bree is healthy, but I think Essendon I like what Nat Wood is doing. I like what Essendon is doing. And I think the move of location, I'm going to tip the Bombers in this one.
I think if Collingwood get their elite players back, they will run over the top of the Bombers. But if they're out, I think the Bombers will take the chocolates this week.
Yeah,
So I'm
definitely.
going to wait until I see the teams before I make my choice.
So we'll caveat that to like Thursday.
Yes.
I'm gonna stay with the Bombers, because the other thing I could worry is, do they come back underdone? Do they panic and bring them back in underdone too, which I think could also be a bad thing on that one. So
Yeah,
all right, we'll go
true.
over to Arden Street as the North Melbourne Roos host the GWS Giants. I think the Roos are angry, and I think the Giants, unfortunately, are their victim in this one. I think Roos big, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah, if I was GWS, I'd just throw in the orange flag and just say that they can't make the trip down because of the grand final or something. But yes, no, poor GWS. Yeah, I think they're gonna have to do everything they can to try and stop that force from North, especially in the way that North lost the match on the weekend. They're going to be gunning for blood. Yeah, I'd be ducking out of their way too.
Mm-hmm. All right, an interesting one. I love this. At Kinetic Stadium, as Hawthorn hosts the Brisbane Lions. The Lions coming off that great win. This is one of those trap games. I know it's very common in the U.S. to call this a trap game, because this is a weak team, a weaker team, not a weak team. I apologize, Beck Otter. That, no disrespect. It was a simple slip of the tongue. A weaker team going up
A
against one of the
developing
best teams.
team.
Exactly. There we go.
Yes.
Even better. My apologies. A developing team going up against a seasoned, experienced, very good Brisbane Lions team. But this is a risky one, because you're coming off a great win in Tassie, and now you got to play a pesky Hawthorn Hawks team that can be very, very, very annoying when it comes to it.
Yep.
Lions win this one, but I think this one is closer than people expect. I think it comes down to the fourth quarter.
Agreed. Absolutely agree. The Hawks pressure is quite immense. That's how they ran over the top of the Dogs, and they took it to Melbourne. I think it took Melbourne until halfway through the third quarter to really get going. So yeah, definitely going to be a close game, but Lions for me.
All right, and what I think could be a sneaky game of the round on the Oval in SA, as the Adelaide Crows host the Gold Coast Suns. I didn't think I would say that, but I have to say, I think this could be game of the round. I think the Sunnies go over, and I think they push the Crows. Crows win this one, but I think the Sunnies show that they are definitely a finals contender to make finals this year, and be the first Gold Coast team in the AFL or AFLW to make a finals appearance.
Yeah, I think you're right. Can you tip a draw? I reckon it could be as close as that it could almost end up being a draw. But I think Adelaide at home are going to be too strong. But if it ends up being a draw, just remember I told you so before I changed my mind.
All right, well, I will definitely keep an eye on that for sure. I believe the tipping comps that I'm in doesn't have a draws possibility, at least not that
My
I
work
am
one
aware
does.
of. So
One day I'm going to tip that. I'm going to get it right.
there's one of those, yeah. And if you get it, you're going to look like an absolute genius. That's going to be fantastic.
I hope
But
I get 2 points.
that should still get 4, because you got the tip right.
That's right. I'll put it forward.
It's fantastic. Now, Nikki, this has been another fantastic conversation again. All 9 games down again. We're still early in the week. This is going to be this is kind of the cluster, week, because of the fact that all these games are just, I mean, everything is trying to be avoided to go up against the grand final. And many of these are in absolutely just the weirdest possible times, because just coming off my end, because I have my times. I mean, 10:05, 1:05 a.m., 4:15 a.m., 6:15 a.m. This is going to be just an absolutely crazy round, just because the grand final is smack dab in like the most oddball time so we got to get Thursday games. Well, let's play games on Thursday, but put them at the most odd times ever.
Put him in a stadium that's not close, unless you live in the area and where there's a lot of roadworks happening. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Hopefully the Geelong fans show up. Just quietly, I doubt very few Melbourne supporters will show. So
unless they live in Geelong,
which is disappointing.
Unless they live in Geelong, maybe.
Yeah, or they're as passionate as what I am.
Yeah.
So yes, but yes, no. Hopefully there's a good crowd there, because it's going to be a ripper game.
That's a high bar, Nikki, when it comes
Gonna be
to
a ripper
when the
game.
passionate. So
Yes.
I definitely agree. Definitely agree on that one. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for our AFLW review here. Another fantastic conversation again. And keep an eye out. Again, I have VFL, Sandful, and Waffle finals review shows coming up this week. And a special surprise as my AFL review sees the return of a very good friend of the podcast and a very well-known person in the podcast. I will leave that little tease for you that know who I'm talking about. I cannot wait for it in a few days to sit there and have a chat about the grand final and the men's competition as well. But again, I will not disrespect it. Go the women. This is going to be a fantastic round 5. I cannot wait for it. Nikki, stay awesome down there. Continue to keep doing what you're doing. Stay passionate on this women's comp. I am right there with you. You have my full support when it comes to it. When it comes to your opinions, I absolutely love them. So much fun to talk with you, and please have a wonderful, wonderful evening. We will talk again very soon.
Thanks, Donnie. You too. Great to have you on board. Talk to you again
Awesome.
soon.
Awesome. That'll do it for our episode. We'll be back again very, very soon with another Donnie's Disposals in your ear.